Okay, welcome back to the United Pubcast for the latest instalment in, I'm not sure what of the reaction of the last couple of days. It has been an eventful 48 hours. I forget how long it was since the debacle at Anfield. Obviously, Liverpool 7, Manchester United 0. So I just thought might as well just get on here and just have a bit of a chat because the topics post-match have been understandable in regards to the outrage, and there's a lot of media attention. Fully understand that, and that is fully deserved. But some of the nonsense out there I do think needs to be called out. So I did put the call out for a few replacements. I haven't heard from Larry today. I'm not sure. He hasn't got back to me in a few injury replacements. But the Pubcast squad depth is about as thin as Manchester United squad depth at the moment. So flying solo tonight. So probably a bit of a quick one. If anyone does want to jump on and help us out, so let me know. I'll shoot you the link. You can come on and have your say in regards to what is a tricky week for Manchester United fans. But if you are in the live chat, you can help me along by keeping the topics and questions coming in, and we'll just sort of bounce off each other. But just a few topics in regards to today. The backlash after the 7-0 defeat. The 7-0 defeat is still there, unfortunately. We'll try to put it to the side, but there's no hiding from the fact that it is still there. Hard to deal with. I'm even getting kids at school. Obviously, I work in schools. Getting kids today coming up to me talking about it. I just think that's what hurt most. I could deal with the 90 minutes. I'll brush that to the side. When kids are coming up, last 2 days, reminding me of the score. Painful, very painful. So, in the comments, do let me know your thoughts on how you have reacted to the game and sort of what your feelings are ahead of what is a big game now. We do need a trophy. The players do need a trophy to fix this. And I wouldn't say a trophy's up for grabs this week, but the first step to the next trophy, obviously against Real Betis, is this week. So let me know how you're thinking, but I'll bounce off everyone's comments in the live chat, which will be very much appreciated today. And a little bit of support for me. Please do leave a like on the video, as I am flying solo for the first time in a live setting, I do believe. But Edgar, good to see you, mate. This will be one of the topics I do want to touch on. Gary Neville. Look, and I absolutely love the guy. I've got the signed card there from Gary Neville. Thanks, Emad from Man Cave United. But my God, Gary Neville, I'd want to have a bit of a word with him. But he's saying he's an interesting guy. I love how they talk so much about managing from a perspective of failure. Look, Gary Neville's entitled to his opinion as much as anyone else. Me, you, Edgar, everyone else. And look, Gary Neville, I think, has been brilliant for football since he retired in regards to his punditry. I think he's one of my favourites out there. 100%, but he is wrong in this case. And I do think he needs to apologise, but we'll touch on the Gary Neville thing in a little bit. In regards to how we're feeling post-match, Dion here saying, to be honest, I've stayed away from social media because the fallout is predictable. Still fuming, though. Good man staying away from social media. I've tried my best, but it is hard. You do want to get involved in those discussions. Rob saying, moved on quicker than I thought. Look forward to seeing how the lads respond. Yeah, I think this happened last year against 5-0 against Liverpool and whatever it was against City. We had no confidence the next week into that next game. I think, oh, God, they're not going to bounce back from this. 7-0, I do. Well, weirdly, I do share some confidence that Manchester United are going to go out and respond against Real Betis, and I think it's Southampton on the weekend. And ultimately, that is a good thing. It's not good to be off the back of a 7-0 defeat, but in regards to how Erik ten Hag and these players have reacted to bad performances or bad moments throughout the season, it does fill you with confidence. So maybe this is a bit of a bump in the road that was needed for Man United. It's never nice, but we sat here when Erik ten Hag was announced saying it's going to be ups and downs. We sort of always walked around with our chest puffed out when they were the ups. These are one of the downs you do have to deal with. We expected these. It's one of those things we do have to deal with as Man United fans. George, I haven't paid too much attention to this in the past few days. You're a better man than me, George. I've been roped into it all. Chris, good to see you, mate. Adam, as always, as well. Elliot, good to see you, mate. I'll have your photo. It's just behind the screen. I can't find it there. I'm going to send that Brian Robson at LC. Elliot was a winner of our World Cup sweepstakes. Picked Argentina, or was given Argentina. And obviously Argentina came up big and he won a signed Brian Robson photo. So it's just there. I'll be sending that out to you this week. I've been giving Liverpool fans shit nonstop since yesterday, and it made me feel much better. Ultimately, if they start pointing 7 fingers at you, what I've done to the kids at school, I point 7 fingers back, and I've been told, I haven't looked at the table, but I've been told we're 7 points ahead of Liverpool. So I'm going with that. Tell them look at the league table rather than one individual scoreboard, because in regards to points shared this season, they took 3 points off us. We took 3 points off them at the start of the season. So quite even on the performance levels in regards to Man United and Liverpool head-to-head this season. And Adam's saying, ultimately, I think it won't be remembered too much if we finish above Liverpool. Yeah, look, it will stick there, no doubt. Look at the 8-2 match against Arsenal. We didn't win the league that season, from memory. We didn't win the league that season. No, that was the 11-12 season. Got one more goal we would have in regards to goal difference. I believe I've got that season right. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was the 11-12 season. One more goal would have won us the not one more goal, but one more point throughout the season would have won the season over Manchester City that year. But we still remember that 8-2. That's my point there. Liverpool will remember this 7-0, and rightly so. Could you imagine if that was us beating Liverpool 7-0? So this will stick, unfortunately, in regards to what it means. It means absolutely nothing at the end of the season, of course, and that is maybe the glass half full, something we can take from this. Obviously not easy to do now, but it is one of those things. Another topic I want to get into later in regards to Chris, Bruno isn't our captain. Varane should wear it. That's an opinion I shared at the start of the season. And it's not one I really differ from now. I just have all these fears. I don't think there is that ideal candidate because my first concern is if we give Rafael Varane the captaincy, which I will be a fan of, I think he'd dislocate his shoulder within a week. I just think he's one of those players now. He has shown a good fitness record this season, but ultimately over his career and his time at Manchester United on a whole, his injury record is not great. Do you want to give the captaincy to them and see him sitting on the sideline? I'm not quite sure. In regards to what he brings on the pitch, 100%. I think he is a future Manchester United captain if he can stay on top of his fitness issue, which he has this season, to be fair to him. So he obviously is in the discussion. I don't think Bruno Fernandes should be stripped of the captaincy, but it does come into the topic, no doubt. Ashby, good to see you, mate. Best to let it go, I think. Look forward to the next game against Betis. Definitely looking forward to it. Adam, you reminded me, how old are these kids giving you sticks? Some of them are even Manchester City fans, which is crazy to me. They're on like year 7, year 8, they support Manchester City, which absolutely baffles me and angers me a little bit. But that is the world we do live in. And now Chris is saying Liverpool had a heap of injuries, which most come back early Feb. They'll finish strong. Yes, you do look at the table. There's no doubt we are looking behind us on the table, unfortunately. And you look at the points tally, and they are where they're going to overtake United, probably not. But in regards to a top 4 race, they're there. You'd have to say probably favourites if they stay fit and Mohamed Salah stays in a little bit of form. You'd have to say they probably pip Newcastle to 4th spot. I hate Newcastle at the moment, so maybe that's a good thing. But I definitely don't want to see Liverpool make their Champions League because I think that means one thing and one thing only. I think that means Jude Bellingham arrives at Anfield next year. So let me know your thoughts in regards to if Liverpool do or don't make the Champions League, what that means for Manchester United / Liverpool's chase for Jude Bellingham. So I think that will be interesting. Adam reminded me, he's saying, I think Chelsea won the league from an offside goal that season. No, that was the season with the V. That was the 9-10 season where Chelsea won with the Drogba goal at Old Trafford. 11-12, I'm just thinking the Rooney hat-trick, Danny Welbeck scored. I'm positive that was the 11-12 season. And Dion here saying, do players need to be rested, mate? 20-odd games since the World Cup is ridiculous. Our schedules post-World Cup is crazy in regards to, I think it's 3.5 days or less than 4 days of what it is a game, which is, I think, the highest across Europe. Now, obviously, Manchester United are a very rich club where we pay a lot of players big wages to have that squad depth. Unfortunately, on paper and on grass, you look at that depth and it's not there. So excuses, reasons, who knows? But you do look at that 7-0 and was that coming? I think the defeat was definitely coming. 7-0 wasn't coming. But in terms of a lackluster performance, that was definitely coming, unfortunately, when you do look at what has been dealt to Manchester United post-World Cup and what Manchester United have put themselves in as well. In regards to last season was poor. We had to have Europa League football. This season we didn't top the Europa League group, so we had to have that extra match extra 2 matches against Barcelona. Our success in the League Cup has given us extra games, so ultimately it is life. It's one of those things we do have to deal with and move on, but I don't know if it sounds like an excuse if you say we have too many fixtures, but ultimately it is a reason why we are going to get these subpar performances. Unfortunately, it did come at Anfield. But I will go into just a few topics. And as I said, in the live chat, do help me out with any questions, topics, and I can sort of bounce off each other to keep this chat going. But the first thing I do want to touch on is in regards to the media's reaction, whether the media, social media, fans' reaction online, or the media as we consume in terms of Sky Sports. Now, we don't get Sky Sports in Australia, but I'm sure if you're watching from overseas, you do, or even the Australian Reds here, we do see everything on Sky Sports and it pops up on YouTube, Twitter, etc. So we see all the quotes, we see all the footage 100%. The names that do pop up around Sky Sports, especially in regards to Manchester United Liverpool content, are the famous names, Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, Roy Keane, and Graham Souness. They had all 4, of course they did, in the Sky Sports studio for that match, and rightly so. It's one of those things, I think all of these have a sort of part to play in this story. So do let me know your thoughts on these 4 guys and what they have said. But my main thing comes to Gary Neville. I want to touch on Roy Keane's comments a little bit later because I think he makes a very interesting point, which I didn't really think about, but I tend to agree when you do see the evidence of it. But on Gary Neville, look, I love Gary Neville. As I said, I think he's been brilliant for punditry since he's retired from football. I think he's arguably the best pundit out there. but he can make mistakes. Players make mistakes. Us fans make mistakes. Players, managers, and pundits. We all make mistakes, but I think he has made a big mistake here. Some players, some fans, everyone has personal opinions on players. We like this player. We don't like that player. That's football. That's life. He's a professional and he has a job to do. And he obviously doesn't have a... He'll say he likes Bruno. Deep down, I think it's very easy to say he has a little bit of a dislike towards Bruno, which is fine. A lot of Man United fans hate Bruno, which is crazy. But if he doesn't like Bruno Fernandes for whatever reason, that's his opinion. Crack on. But ultimately, what Sky Sports viewing figures, it goes around to millions of people around the world. He's the probably the most influential voice amongst Manchester United fans, would you say, Gary Neville? In my opinion, I think he'd be very close to it. Like it or not, unfortunately, whatever you think of Mark Goldbridge, he would arguably be the most influential voice, whether you like that or not, just in regards to his size of platform amongst Manchester United fans. But Gary Neville is in and around that discussion. And for him to blatantly lie, obviously, if anyone hasn't seen it, he made the accusation that Bruno Fernandes was waving his arms around, demanding to be substituted after one of the goals. I think it was after one of the Mohamed Salah goals. The camera wasn't on Bruno Fernandes, but he's made this claim that Bruno Fernandes is waving his arms about, demanding to be subbed. Criminal if that was true from Bruno Fernandes. If you ask him to be subbed, unless you're injured and got your leg hanging off, criminal by Bruno Fernandes if that was to be the case. Footage did come out of that time, of that footage, where Bruno Fernandes was standing in the centre circle. He was not doing that. There was a substitution being made, and Bruno Fernandes sort of shrugged his shoulders, said, am I coming off, or what position am I going on? It was even a case too, he was looking at the referee and saying, like, can we hurry this game up? Let's go. There was no waving of the arms demanded to be substituted. And for Gary Neville to throw Bruno Fernandes, the captain, under the bus and question his captaincy in that statement, saying, how is Manchester United's captain acting like that on the pitch? Now, we'll get into Bruno's behaviour on the pitch earlier in the game in regards to running around and his performance as a captain. But Gary Neville's voice amongst Manchester United fans and the football world to throw Bruno Fernandes under the bus like that and accuse him of something he simply didn't do, it's shocking. If it's Graham Souness or that's Jamie Carragher, you think, okay, crack on. Okay, you're live or whatever. For Gary Neville, he's a Manchester United fan. Forget Manchester United legend, he's a Manchester United fan. He wants the best for Manchester United. And to throw a player, the captain, under the bus like that, I thought was... I hate using this buzzword thrown out in regards to football, but it was a disgrace. I thought it was absolutely shocking by Gary Neville. Is he going to apologise? I think he should. Will he? I'm not sure. It's one of those things. I think he's a very proud man in terms of sticking to his guns. I think he'll try and avoid the subject, but ultimately I do think Gary Neville should apologise for that. But do let me know your thoughts in the live chat. I'll get to some people in the live chat. So Mark Goldbridge name, isn't that a made-up name? It is a made-up name. A lot of people, I won't divulge into his name here, but obviously a lot of people do know who that is. But also George as well. What about Bruno grab the linesman? That's an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts in regards to that. Technically, it looks like he's going to escape a ban. Now, technically, if he was to get a ban, while extremely soft and it wouldn't be deserved, you could kind of say, well, it can have no complaints. Don't put your hands on the referee. Now, it's not hands on a referee. It's an absolute nothing incident. The linesman put his hands on Bruno, for God's sake. So it's a nothing incident, of course. But if a ban was to occur, you'd have to say, well, by the letter of the book, he can have no complaints. Now, it does look like he's escaped a ban, thank God. But maybe does he need a ban in regards to not just a ban, but a time away from the field? Because Bruno Fernandes is one of those players who has run himself into the ground, except obviously when that young Liverpool player went past him, which is another discussion, which we'll get into a little bit. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes, when we had the Betters preview, I think I wouldn't be dropping him, but maybe it is a time to potentially rest/drop Bruno Fernandes because he is that player he plays every minute of every game. So it is very interesting. Elliot here, good on you calling for this out, Tom. I like Gary, but this is shocking. Yeah, I'm also disappointed in Gary. I sound like a father to Gary Neville. Just disappointed because he knows what he's doing there. He knows the voice he has, and he knows he's throwing Bruno Fernandes under the bus. We all wanted to lash out at players. After you're losing 7-0 away at Anfield, you do want to. It's a natural reaction to lash out, but you do have it. Gary Neville has a responsibility, and I think he sort of wasted that as well. And maybe as a private phone call to Bruno Fernandes, because Bruno Fernandes is copping it big time online now, unfortunately, off the back of that. And I'd expect better from Gary Neville. As I said, got this here from, I'm not sure if he's in the chat, but Emad, hope you're well, mate. Gave this only a couple of weeks ago, signed card from Gary Neville, which I absolutely love. Best right back in the Premier League era. And as I said, I love him as a pundit. I think he is brilliant. Today, or yesterday, whenever it was, I think he's stuffed up and should hold his hands up. There's a few other things in the live chat. SJ, good to see you, mate. I feel sorry for Bruno, cop too much from this. He definitely did. Now, he deserved huge criticism, I thought, and it goes into my next point in regards to Bruno Fernandes and the captaincy off the back of this comment, and not just the comment, but his performance and his sort of, I'd say poor behaviour. I don't think his attitude was good in the match at Anfield. So his captaincy has been brought into question now. I think quite lazily. I think these articles were drafted by all the journalists months ago, waiting for a big loss. Obviously, Manchester United didn't have that big loss, so they had to stay in the journalist drafts and rivals fans' tweets. Big loss, they all come out at once. Of course, they do. Ultimately, questioning Bruno Fernandes' captaincy. Now, look, I love Bruno Fernandes, of course. I've had this discussion with Larry many times. As much as I love Bruno Fernandes, I don't think he's a great captain. Now, I think he has great leadership qualities, so I think, okay, good leader, okay, he'd make a good captain. I don't think, as a player, if I was playing next to Bruno Fernandes, if he was the way he plays the game and the way the way he's vocal and the way he's animated, I do like that. But if I was a player and he performs like Bruno does, which is not a criticism of Bruno, just the style he does, as captain, I think I would potentially sometimes have a little bit of an issue with him. Now, that issue might be minor. The issue might be swept under the carpet at full time. I'm not sure. But ultimately, I don't see Bruno Fernandes as a great Manchester United captain. I think you just let him be, almost when Wayne Rooney was appointed captain. I think it took away from his game a little bit. I think let Bruno Fernandes do what he wants to do by himself. And that's the most you get out of Bruno Fernandes, giving him that added responsibility and that added weight. Maybe it adds to Bruno's game, maybe it doesn't, but I'm not quite sure. So do let me know your thoughts in regards to Bruno Fernandes' sort of suitability as captain, because ultimately as well, his behaviour was poor against, not in regards to this highlighted issue by Gary Neville, but the rest of the performance at Anfield wasn't good from Bruno Fernandes, rolling around. Yeah, I have no issue with waving the arms around ultimately, but when you ask 5-6-0 down, waving your arms around when you're not performing well is a bad look. So do let me know your thoughts on Bruno as well. Adam, first game I watched on Sky Sports, and what a horrible one it was to watch with Carragher on it. Yeah, look, it's never going to be fun with Jamie Carragher. Yeah, unfortunately, you do have to deal with it on social media. But Elliot as well, I think Erik ten Hag has to look at his rotation. This team has never been a hard-working team off the ball until this season. I'm not surprised they hit a wall. 3 games a week is like 4 for most of these guys. And yet 100%, and I think I know that's not a criticism of Erik ten Hag. The one criticism of Erik ten Hag this season would be the squad rotation. Now, you could easily sit here and say, well, if you rotate the squad, you're going to lose games, so you're not going to get as many wins. So Erik ten Hag is right in playing his strong side, which he is. But ultimately, I think there are times. I think there was one game, was it the second leg in the semi-final? I think a couple of goals up against Nottingham Forest, and he went 100% with his stronger side. And I thought that was an opportunity to rest a few players. But ultimately, Erik ten Hag has been brilliant. But as I said, all players make mistakes, all pundits make mistakes. We as fans make mistakes. Erik ten Hag makes mistakes. Thank God he's making more right decisions than wrong ones, but he is someone who needs to be held accountable, and he'll learn. No, I think he'll learn. I think we forget in regards to it's his first season in the Premier League. It's his first trip to Anfield. I think someone said he had a trip with Ajax to Anfield, but it was behind closed doors, so obviously not the same thing. He'll learn from this experience. Well, he better learn from this trip to Anfield for next season, because I saw that unfortunate stat, which I'm sure a lot of people have, in regards to since Mohamed Salah has arrived at Liverpool, which was a while ago now, he has more goals against Manchester United at Anfield. No, sorry. He has more yellow cards celebrating goals at Anfield than Manchester United have goals at Anfield. I'm just thinking that's a stat you would love as a Liverpool fan, and you hate as a Manchester United fan. It's a crazy stat, but goes to show you how poor our record has been since Mohamed Salah has joined Liverpool. Obviously, Sergio Aguero was a huge thorn in Manchester United's side when he arrived at Etihad. Ultimately, you look at the facts since Mohamed Salah has arrived, and look, I'm not a huge fan of Salah for obvious reasons, obviously because he plays for Liverpool, but even he defies me in regards to I don't rate him too highly, but he obviously proves me wrong every single week, unfortunately. But his record against Manchester United is crazy. Not fair play to him, but it is what it is. It's an unfortunate stat. SJ here saying, I'll take Bruno as captain over Maguire every day of the week. Horrible night for him, but it was for all. Yeah, look, and it's not me stripping Bruno Fernandes of the captaincy, because as I said, if I go through the other candidates, let's say Maguire, okay, it hasn't worked, or whatever you think, it just hasn't worked. I thought it was probably the right decision at the time, as bad as that was. I thought, okay, you move on from Ashley Young. Yeah, Harry Maguire was far too soon, and ultimately he's proven not to be a Manchester United sort of player/captain. So, okay, no to Maguire. David De Gea, I think a lot of people, goalkeepers, it's one of those ones, and is David De Gea's future at United? I'm not sure, so I wouldn't be going the goalkeeper, but he's obviously a candidate. Then you look around. Rashford, okay, he's not a captain for me, definitely not. Rafael Varane, you would say yes, but ultimately, is he going to stay fit? Now, he very well could do, but he's also in the same vein of Harry Maguire. Is he too soon in regards to his United career? Now, obviously, his career is fabulous in regards to what he's achieved. A definite different kettle of fish to what Harry Maguire sort of arrived with. But ultimately, I think when Maguire got that sort of captaincy, we said, no, a player should be here for a far longer period before considered for the captaincy. So it's a tricky one. I would say Rafael Varane is a prime candidate, but I do have concerns if he of his fitness record. And so I will keep Bruno Fernandes, but ultimately, I think in regards to not having that ideal candidate, people are blaming Bruno. And look, that is one of the things, as I said, in regards to Gary Neville, we need to lash out when things get bad. It's a natural reaction. But people are blaming Bruno Fernandes. People are blaming Harry Maguire for being not great captains. They shouldn't be blamed for that. No, yeah, so we obviously always expect better and demand more of players, but ultimately that comes down to recruitment and sort of managers appointing them as captains, but ultimately the recruitment of the characters. Because are we having a discussion around Diego Dalot's not a great captain? Or Terrell Malacia is a great captain? Or Fred isn't a great captain? We're not having those discussions simply because the manager hasn't given them the captaincy. But because they've given the captaincy to Bruno and Maguire, we're judging them as captains. But when they were signed as Manchester United players, we didn't sign them as great leaders or captain material. We signed them as footballers. And ultimately, I think that is where the discussion around the captaincy needs to be sort of critiqued in regards to the characters we're bringing in now. The characters Erik ten Hag has brought in, obviously, sort of along the right track to potentially be future captains, of course. But as of now, I think it's a tricky spot. Obviously, deserve criticism, Harry Maguire and Bruno, 100%. But I wouldn't be blaming them for not being great captains. So they're footballers first. I think ultimately we need to bring a leader in. Do let me know your thoughts in regards to that. But Adam, here as we move on, Tom, who do you think? I've seen one or two comments here in regards to Osimhen or Kane. I think if we do get Kane, if Spurs don't make Champions League football, this comment as well earlier, sorry, a little bit later, Box, I'd get Osimhen plus Kane. Look, if Qatari owners come in, look, it's not a possibility, of course, but it's a possibility. Who knows? My opinion on there has been a little bit of a rumour. I think Neil Custis potentially broke something around Harry Kane today. Not broke something, or it might have been the Mirror. I forget. Do correct me if you do know in the comments. But around Harry Kane, there's no secret Manchester United have an interest in Kane. There's no doubt Harry Kane has an interest in leaving Tottenham. Who knows how this will play out? Ideally, though, I look at how Erik ten Hag, how we have seen Erik ten Hag try and play in terms of how he's tried to fit Martial in, tried to fit Weghorst in. I'll get into Weghorst. Remind me of Weghorst in the chat. I just talked about backing the players and supporting the players. Weghorst is in my he's not on my Christmas card list at the moment. I'll tell you why. But in regards to Harry Kane, I understand the age. I understand the wages. I understand potentially issues around his fitness. I made a video a couple of months ago. I think he's perfect for what Manchester United need now. Especially, and again, I always revert back to football narratives. I look at if Arsenal win the league this season, which you'd unfortunately think they will. Arsenal win the league this season. Okay, go get Tottenham's big striker who's never won a trophy before and Arsenal fans hate. Obviously, an Arsenal fan as a kid, bring him in, Robin Van Persie style, best striker in the league, throw Erling Haaland to the side, but Harry Kane goes into that best striker category and come and win the league at Old Trafford. I could potentially see that happening. I think Manchester United and new owners need a statement signing. Harry Kane is that. Now, obviously, you can look at Mbappe, Osimhen, of course, but in regards to Premier League, England's captain, it is a huge thing. So I do see a real situation where Harry Kane arrives at Manchester United. A lot of people are saying Osimhen at the moment. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Apologies if not. I've seen the highlights of him. I haven't seen Napoli play in the Champions League, if I'm being honest, this season. Obviously, looks a player, of course, and obviously has had sort of quite a sort of improved career, which is a good sign. But ultimately, I haven't seen too much. I've seen the goals and think, yep, sign him up. He suits sort of fast attacking football, of course, and he has a great goal record. Will that translate to the English Premier League? Who knows? It might. He might be absolutely brilliant. I don't like using the term Premier League proven, but ultimately, I think that is a huge thing with Harry Kane. If he comes in, he scores 25, 30 goals for Manchester United. And if we have a player doing that, added Marcus Rashford to the left, who has a relationship with him for England as well, if we add 25, 30 goals through the middle, and I think Harry Kane does guarantee that. Now, obviously, a player can flop and it cannot work out, of course. But ultimately, I think Harry Kane goes close to guaranteeing that. Osimhen might. The money would suggest that's a flip of a coin, though. Who knows? So if I was leaning to one, I would lean to Harry Kane. Now, is Harry Kane going to cost double what Osimhen would? I'm not sure. Probably not. I'm not sure the latest situation with Harry Kane's dealings with Tottenham is. Could you get him at a cut price? Potentially. It's still going to cost an absolute fortune. Would you be willing to pay that fortune? I think ultimately whoever we get, whoever we want to buy goals for, it is going to cost a lot. So I would be potentially leaning towards Harry Kane, because when Jose Mourinho took over Harry Kane, it really opened my eyes. I remember when Wenger sold Robin van Persie to Sir Alex Ferguson, he said, "You don't realise how good this player is." And when we signed Robin van Persie, I wasn't over the moon. I was, okay, yeah, good strike. We'll see what happens. I was actually saying, no, it's sort of limiting Danny Welbeck's chances. So it shows how much I know in regards to that. I was hoping Danny Welbeck got more of a chance. But ultimately, when I saw Robin van Persie play week in, week out, what a player. I didn't realise that when he was at Arsenal. I just saw a good striker. When he arrived at United and you watch him every week, like Casemiro, we always knew he was a good player at Real Madrid. Watching him week in, week out, you realise that he's more than a good player. And I think with Harry Kane, when Jose Mourinho rocked up at Tottenham, I watched a little bit more of Tottenham. I was just on the TV a little bit more. And Harry Kane really impressed me. I always just thought he was a goal scorer. He's not just a goal scorer. I think Harry Kane is a brilliant player. Now, there's a lot of sort of narratives around Harry Kane in regards to the banter we throw at Tottenham and no trophies, and Harry Maguire has more trophies than Harry Kane now and all these things, of course. And I join in all those while he's a Tottenham player. But if he joins Manchester United, I think a lot of people really sort of appreciate how good a footballer he is. So I would welcome him at Man United. Is it good business? I'm not sure. It'll be good business if we win a league. Would he guarantee that? I'm not sure. But do let me know your thoughts. One or two more topics to get into before I do wrap up. But do appreciate everyone's interaction in the live chat. Please do leave a like on the video. And a few more comments before we crack on with the last topic here, Wout Weghorst, I do want to touch on. But Dion here, the captaincy thing in football is so overblown. It's not cricket. He's not set in the field, making bowling changes, etc. There is a part of me which agrees with that. I think, look, I do ultimately agree with that. I think players, you have 11 captains out there. Everyone sort of holds themselves accountable and should have pride in their performance to do their best 100%. A team full of captains will win. Ultimately, I think there is something there. They're just the armband, the presence, their aura. There's just something there, in my opinion. But I do take your point there. Dion, Chris here, Harry, Robin van Persie, Kane, George as well. I think if Casemiro scored that header and was onside, I don't think we copped 7. Well, back to the game. Yeah, I didn't go back and watch the highlights, but they sort of popped up a few things. Marcus Rashford had a chance, should have scored. A hard chance, but in his form, should have scored. If you only get one chance a game, you've got to take it at places like Anfield. Bruno Fernandes was a whisker wide with a header. Suddenly we're 2-0 up. We're having a different discussion about Manchester United and their attitude and Bruno's captaincy. So a lot of people didn't like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer talking about fine margins. Fine margins are a thing. There's another situation where we're 3-0 up at halftime at Anfield. Same players, same attitude, different scoreline and a different discussion. So it is interesting, but I do agree with George there. Boxy is saying, can't we just buy Napoli? They do have a lot of players. That I'm not going to pronounce that right back's name. I believe he plays right back. He does look a player. I'm not sure his best position. I'm sure he's obviously got a little bit of a midfield tendency, but I do like that player. And obviously that is the South Korean centre-back. Obviously, he's heavily linked with Manchester United. So I'll be very interested to I'll have to maybe watch Napoli. Let me know when their next game is. Are they in the Champions League this week? Let us know when Napoli playing. I'll make sure to keep an eye out for it. 22 versus 30. Be interested to see if United change their way in thinking long-term. Not right now. Well, yeah. Well, that's a huge part in regards to the Osman Kane debate. In regards to wage, 100%. So the business side of the Harry Kane situation is why I can see it not being a brilliant signing. But in regards to what I care about, what I see on the pitch on a Saturday, I think Harry Kane would be. Adam, yeah, Osman will cost more than Kane. Well, you look at the age, and I'm sure he's on a longer contract than Kane, so that wouldn't be surprising. Box, Kane plus Man United will be the perfect combine. Both hated a lot, both making rivals cry when they win the quad. That's what I go back to. I'm not signing a player for a story, but I can see the story. Like when Robin van Persie arrived from Arsenal, go win us the league, you kind of see that happening. With Harry Kane, I could see that happening now. Someone, a pessimist would say, well, you're bringing a player in who hasn't won trophies. He's going to bring that disease to Old Trafford. So it depends what side of the fence you do sit on. But at the moment, my opinion might change. Who knows if Weghorst goes and scores a couple of hat-tricks the rest of the season, I'll be saying sign him. But ultimately, as things stand today, I would be going to get Harry Kane. Now, at the moment, we haven't even discussed in this in regards to if Qatar come in, Kylian Mbappe, who knows what's going to happen there. But as things stand, Harry Kane for me. Now, two more topics. First, about Weghorst. This isn't a discussion about him as a player. Is he a Manchester United player or not? Ultimately, I think if you look at Cody Gakpo, Erik ten Hag's first choice in January, he comes on, scores a few goals against Man United. It's a bit of a kick in the teeth. And ultimately, what do we have leading the light in Anfield? A Burnley striker on loan who, unfortunately, I think he's only got one goal for Manchester United. Now, I think he's done very well. That's not to be too critical of him, but the facts are the facts. He's a striker brought in. he's not scoring goals. Now, as I said, he's not been given much help in regards to Anthony Martial. Should be the number one striker, and Wout Weghorst should be sort of utilised sparingly. That's not the case. Is that an excuse or a reason? I'm not sure. But ultimately, Wout Weghorst, I've just spoken about defending Bruno. I'm backing the players no matter what, which I do stand by, and I do back Weghorst 100%. Ultimately, though, I'm not sure if anyone has seen the footage. If you have, unfortunately, you're in the same boat as me probably. Coming out pre-match at Anfield against Liverpool. He touched the... It's nothing. Why do we care about this? But we do. He touched the Anfield, this is Anfield sign. It's nothing, but my God, it's something to me. He just shouldn't have done it, and it's not a get out of my club or anything like that towards Weghorst, but it just, off the back of losing 7-0, seeing that footage, I just thought it's not unforgivable or anything. It's one of those things as a fan that just rolls you up. So, and it just sort of adds to that discussion. It adds around the feeling towards Weghorst. Is he what we need at Manchester United? Now, deep down, we obviously know the answer is no, unfortunately. Now, that's not to say he hasn't been good for United. I think, of course, he is in regards to the job Erik ten Hag is asking of him. But ultimately, when you do see him out there, and Erik ten Hag's first choice is playing for our biggest rivals, whatever we think of Gakpo, that's obviously what the case was. And we have Weghorst not quite doing the business in regards to getting goals. It's frustrating. Then he goes and touches the Anfield sign, and it's a bit of a kick in the teeth. So ultimately, Weghorst, not on my good list at the moment. But Box, I do agree. He's toughed up. It's one of those things, unfortunately. I'll still back him, but he should know better, like Gary Neville. And Dion here saying, I doubt we keep him. Yeah, as things stand, Sabitzer is one I'll definitely keep. I'll definitely be looking at making that permanent. Weghorst at the moment, you would have to say, thank you, good job. Move on. Hopefully we can go and sort of invest bigger in the summer. But that's not to be too critical of Weghorst at the moment. He's running himself into the ground for the club. That's all I can ask for. But learn, mate. You don't do that when you go away to Anfield. Last bit, Roy Keane. This is an interesting one because I've just said Gary Neville is completely wrong, and I think Roy Keane is a flip of a coin. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, like all of us. He sort of rubs people up the wrong way a little bit with his honesty. Sometimes he can be too stubborn to sort of sway from his opinions, etc. This one, I think he got completely right, and it's something I did notice during the week, but I thought nothing of it. Was saying he senses a bit of sort of complacency creeping into the Manchester United dressing room / club. And I thought, what are you talking about, Roy? Like, absolutely nonsense. Let the guys celebrate. Let them have a smile on their face after winning the Carabao Cup. But he reverted it back to his time at Manchester United in terms of after the treble or when they won leagues. He sensed that complacency in terms of people bouncing into training, being really happy, saying, look what we've won, look what we've done. And he could sense sort of the eye sort of coming off the ball a little bit. And ultimately, the things he has highlighted, now, again, probably nothing in this, and I do think there's nothing in it, but again, the perception and the narrative is reality. And ultimately, you do look at Old Trafford during the week. He was right. We had about 6 or 7 celebrations on the pitch in regards to the Carabao Cup final. Ultimately, yes, it was a long wait for Manchester United to win a trophy, of course. Ultimately, it was the League Cup. We have to, in terms of where our standards want to be, it was the League Cup. And ultimately, you did see what was happening on the pitch before the game. We paraded the Carabao Cup final. We had David De Gea's presentation. Now, all these things are deserved, 100%, but if you add them all up, the Carabao Cup was presented. David De Gea got a presentation. Casemiro, Mary Earps got a presentation. As I said, deserved presentations for them. But ultimately, we won one game, and out there we're presenting, got 20 minutes of presentations at Old Trafford. Now, that's not to be critical of those, but from Roy Keane's point of view, who has achieved greatness at Old Trafford, I can see what he's thinking in regards to we've had a feel-good factor and everyone's out bouncing around Old Trafford. Look what we've done. And I think, yes, they are good achievements, but ultimately we have got a football match to win. And ultimately, you do look at that West Ham match. We could have lost that match. There has been a few games. Leicester a few weeks ago, we could have been losing a fair bit at halftime. We have been humiliated at Anfield. So is a little bit of sort of complacency creeping into the Manchester United dressing room? I would potentially say no. But from Roy Keane's point of view, it would be hard to argue against him. So before we do wrap up, do let me know your thoughts on the Roy Keane comment. Is he over the top? Is he right? I'm not sure, but I'll just touch on 1 or 2 more comments before we do wrap up. SJ here saying nothing went our way that evening. Let's all forget it happened and move on to the next game. That's all you can do as fans and players. It'll be interesting now. Erik ten Hag deals with the players throughout the week. Adam, see, did I want to keep Sabitzer again, but now not sure if we should. It's an interesting one. I think Sabitzer starts against Real Betis, so I think he has a big chance to start that match, which is a good thing. I think Sabitzer would be as a backup ahead of Fred and McTominay. I think the Fred one is interesting in regards to his contract situation in relation to Sabitzer in terms of making that permanent. It sounds like Sabitzer potentially wants to stay, which is a good thing. You do want the players to have a connection and want to be at Manchester United, of course. How much do you buy Sabitzer for? I was having this discussion with Larry. I was thinking it was going to be 50 million. He was saying no chance. It'd be close to 15 or 20. I'm not sure is the answer in between. Do let me know how much you think Bayern would demand for Sabitzer. George saying if we sell Scott, we need to keep Sabitzer as an 8 or 6. Forget 8, I agree, but forget 8 or 6 just as a body in midfield. We're light in midfield in regards to our depth anyway. So the moment you start selling players, you definitely got to be able to bring them in because we have to bring them in anyway. And Dion, the schedule is so friggin' tight for the players. We're only human. Yeah, and again, that's the point I go back to. We could sit here and say after a loss that's an excuse, but it's also a reason. And I think those are two different things. And at the moment, they do sound like excuses. But yeah, the players aren't human. And we do expect this. Weeks ago, we were saying the players are going to burn out. We won't be able to keep this up. Suddenly it has come crashing down in an isolated fashion, and we're losing our shit saying, oh, look what's happened. Well, we knew this was going to happen. So we do have to deal with it a little better. But last one here before we do crack on. Box, Fred McTominay, Van der Beek. I forgot about him. Hopefully his injury is sort of healing up quite soon. Being phased out perhaps a bit. New start in 8+ promoting the young guy like Mainu, Iqbal being phased in. Yeah, and look, that's a huge thing. Erik ten Hag, while it is... He has had a transfer window. He's technically had 2 transfer windows now. It's still going to take a while for him to get his squad. How long did it take Jurgen Klopp? It took him about 3 years to get a complete Jurgen Klopp squad. Arteta took him many transfer windows to get a complete Arteta squad. I think there's potentially even maybe Xhaka's not a Arteta signing. So it does take time. It's going to take Erik ten Hag a couple of years. And part of a rebuild is the manager sort of utilising the previous tools at his disposal. That is part of being the Manchester United manager. It's not going to be your squad overnight. You do have to, and that obviously ties into a different discussion in regards to John Murtough and Richard Arnold in terms of the recruitment and buying players that suit potential new managers and directors of football, etc. That's potentially why Manchester United have been so poor in recent seasons. We've gone from David Moyes to Louis van Gaal to Jose Mourinho to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There's no consistent plan. And ultimately, I think that is the difference between sort of the top clubs and some clubs who want to be at the top. So ultimately, our recruitment does need to be better because there is a situation where you buy all these players. Erik ten Hag gets sacked. He loses 7-0 again next year at Anfield. Sackable offence. He leaves. You've got all these Erik ten Hag players. Are you going to bring Jose Mourinho in or the next Erik ten Hag? Previously, Manchester United have brought a Jose Mourinho in, a manager who doesn't suit the players. We need to get into that system where we're bringing in players who suit the club and we're bringing in the manager who's suitable as well. So that is a discussion for another day in regards to the summer and the recruitment. And SJ here saying, can't count the last window when we brought in 2 loans on. Yeah, and you pretty much have to sweep that under the rug and say it wasn't a good window, it wasn't successful because we technically kind of brought no one in. If those 2 players are to go back to their parent clubs, it was a wasted window. Well, it definitely was a wasted window, no doubt. But it is going to take time for Erik ten Hag. But my main message after this in regards to this show was just 100% behind Erik ten Hag. And it's a weird feeling. Could you imagine a Jose Mourinho or a Ralph Rangnick or a Solskjaer or David Moyes losing 7-0 at Anfield? We would all be here, and I think rightly so, we would all be here saying, get out of my club, sack him. Monday morning, sack him. Erik ten Hag loses 7-0 at Anfield, and I think every Manchester United fan is unanimous in saying he's the man for the job. He's done perfect. Nothing on Erik ten Hag. He's absolutely brilliant. And I think that's a great feel. Not a great feeling that we lost 7-0, but a very good sort of look back at what Erik ten Hag has done, the credit he has in the bank in such a short amount of time, deservedly so. It's crazy when you do think about he has got off scot-free, and I think, as I said, rightfully, but he's got off scot-free at losing 7-0 at Anfield, which is crazy. So fair play to Erik ten Hag. Long may that continue, but 100% back him, back the players. When you see nonsense in the media, unfortunately, like Gary Neville making up, unfortunately, lies and lying and sort of starting agendas and narratives against players, I think that does deserve to be called out. Whether that be Gary Neville or Big Fan Channel or whatever, or tweets. I think Manchester United, as the title suggests, it is Manchester United. You do need to stay united, especially when we go through tough times. And this is not a tough time. Okay, the isolated 90 minutes was tough, but ultimately we're flying. So this is not a tough time as a fan. Southampton, they're in a tough time. Chelsea, they're in a tough time. Manchester United are good at the moment. So when we do hit a few bumps, as I said, not to sound cliche, but try to stay united where possible. But last comment here before I do wrap up. Dion, quickly on complacency. Keno never played a mid-season World Cup in games every 3 days since. Let's be honest. Yeah, 100%. It has moved on. Roy Keane, when did he retire? 2006, 2007? Potentially 2006. So, yeah, it's a different game from when Roy Keane played. And maybe I do sort of potentially look at Roy Keane's comments a little bit more. Obviously, my favorite ever player, favorite Manchester United player, 100%. So maybe I'm a little bit biased towards his thinking, potentially. But ultimately, you are right. It is a different game, and he sees things back as they were in the 90s, early 2000s. 100% it's a different game, and the demands placed on these players. So that is a fair point, Dion. But I just want to say thank you to everyone in the live chat. As I said, the first time I was planning to go 15, 20 minutes. So I do appreciate everyone keeping me going in the live chat. I'm not sure where all the squad depth of the podcast is, especially Larry. Fingers crossed he gets in touch. Hope all is well. But I do appreciate keeping me going with the topics, questions, and interactions, because I didn't know how I was going to fare today, but I enjoyed that. Hopefully you did get something out of it. If you did, please do leave a like on the video. That'll be very much appreciated. Hit subscribe if you're new. Fingers crossed Larry and I will be back with a Real Betis preview. And I was just doing a Real Betis preview, my potential starting 11. Off the back of Weghorst touching the sign, I'm playing Elanga up front. Back Bruno 100%. I'm probably resting Bruno Fernandes in this one. I've made wholesale changes, and I don't know if that's completely idiocy or I'm completely bang on the money with it. I'm not sure. So stay tuned for the Real Betis preview. Appreciate all the support in the comments, and enjoy your day. The Liverpool defeat will get better. Every day that passes, you will feel a little bit better. So until then, have a good one. We'll chat to you soon. Cheers.